In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host and financial advisor, Rick Everett, and we've assembled the full complement of panelists for this episode to include Financial Advisor Danny Goolsby with Market Advisory Group, from Eidelman Law Firm, Jenah Moody, Mark Benefiel with Market Medicare Advisors, and Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm. For our regular viewers, we welcome you back, and for some of you that might be tuning in for the first time, we are a weekly show dedicated to helping folks just like you avoid disaster and costly mistakes in retirement. A full team working together to help people with not just investment, but tax, Medicare, income, and estate planning.
And because we work together as a team, here at Market Advisor Group, you can obtain real-life answers in real time, whether that be for tax planning, whether that be for healthcare planning, whether that be for financial planning, or estate planning, with Gerald and his team. We meet so many different people from so many different walks of life that, today we want to spotlight a member of our team, Jenah Moody. And Jenah is someone who is a Navy veteran, and she is a paralegal for Gerald Eidelman, who's also a VA accredited attorney.
And Danny, that's what this team does here every day. I'm sure so many people have so many questions and concerns about all things retirement.
They do, and today we wanted to share with you a story of a couple who had been clients for many years. In this story, the husband's father was living in another state and had been living alone in his residence for some time and had just graduated, if you will, because of a declining health, into a long-term care facility. And so he was looking for help on how to pay for those long-term care long-term care costs, if you will. And so our client was inquiring about his father's cost of care because our client was watching his assets deplete rapidly because of the cost of the care. The client was paying about $9,000 a month, the client's father was paying about $9,000 a month in long-term care. And in these kinds of circumstances, a lot of times when people are looking for assistance in anywhere that they can for the cost of long-term care.
During a client review, the dad's situation came up. Our client knew that Gerald Eidelman and his team have experience with Medicaid planning as well as benefits planning with veterans. Let's ask Jenah what was going on in their story.
Absolutely. So our client's father was spending, again, about $9,000 a month for the cost of his father's care in his long-term care facility. And that was all coming out of his pocket. It was rapidly depleting what he had for assets, and it was rapidly depleting his savings, his income. So he had tried to actually qualify for some veterans benefits a few years ago. However, he had too many assets, and the VA pension benefit, he couldn't qualify for it because they had denied it. So he just accepted the denial and decided, well, I'm just going to keep paying for it out of pocket. But after we took a look at his old claim, we realized that it really wasn't his cash, it wasn't his Social Security income, wasn't really even the investment income that was the issue. It was actually the real estate. So the house that Danny had mentioned, it was in another state. And at one point, it was a primary residence. But in terms of taking care of his care, his long-term care, they had decided to turn that piece of property into a rental property to start generating some income to actually help him pay for it. However, that actually caused a wrinkle with the VA pension benefit because that turned the primary residence into a rental property, and it made it an accessible asset that unfortunately disqualified him for VA pension.
Now, Jenah, I've got a question for you, and Danny, I've got a question for you. I'll start with Jenah. One of the things you brought up in this discussion was the application process for veterans benefits. And so a question I would beg of you as a veteran myself, When a person goes to apply for those benefits, if at first they are denied, are there avenues for reapplication?
Absolutely. They have a year to appeal a decision. After the year is up, then they would have to go through the application process again.
Danny, we talk about $9,000 a month. I mean, that's hard for myself, let alone the viewers, to wrap your brain around when it comes to long-term care. But I'm assuming with 30-some years of experience in this business, $9,000 a month may be just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to long-term care costs.
$9,000 a month is the tip of the iceberg. I read a study one time that said that you'll spend more money on the cost of your health care in the last 6 weeks of your life than you did in your entire life. And so you can watch something that took 30 or 40 years to amass, and actually you can watch that evaporate before your very eyes in a very rapid period of time. So it's something that we wanted to highlight the veterans area today. Also, we're going to talk about Medicaid planning here in a little bit. But we want to make sure that we're talking about ways that you can protect the assets that you've worked so hard to amass during your life. How do I do that? How do I amass them? Do I just go out and buy a typical long-term care policy? I don't know if you've priced those things, but those are very expensive. Or are there other ways and other techniques you can use to plan?
And the most tragic of all this is the fact that without protections in place, without a team looking out for your best interest, not only is one spousal partner coming to the end of life incurring astronomical costs that deplete the income of a lifetime, that leaves the second spouse A, alone, and B, without assets.
Yes, that's so true. You talk about, and again, Gerald will get into the equation on how that works for Medicaid spend down for a particular spouse that might be needing long-term care help, whereas the healthy spouse, if you will, they're still at home, but there is oftentimes a big physical drain on that healthy spouse because they're still caring in one manner or another for the spouse that is needing long-term care. So in the case that we're talking about today, though, there was only one of them. They only had the one spouse still living at that point. So then he was trying to protect his assets for the next generation down. He didn't want to go through all of his assets. He wanted to leave a legacy for his children if he could. But again, he was seeing how fast the cost of care was eroding something that had taken him 30 or 40 years of his adult life to amass. And that's where we want to talk about how to long-term care plan. Sometimes that's with long-term care insurance. Sometimes that's with other tools and techniques that we have. Sometimes you can't get long-term care insurance when you need it the most. And so we're trying to strike the right delicate balance on how to make that plan in the place where you find yourself currently.
Just one of the many examples of why it's good to be working together under one roof with the people that we're helping every day. Having that team availability, yeah, top-notch financial planning without a doubt, but there's so much more to retirement planning, the tax aspects, the estate planning, and the Medicare advising. Do you have a whole team looking out for your best interest? If not, what piece could you be missing? At Market Advisory Group, we practice the holistic approach to retirement planning, and if you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. Again, 252-8707. We'll be back with more Eye on Retirement right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors, all in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you. to get you answers in real time, to help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Every day of every week, we see common scenarios, but really, everyone's situation is unique. In our previous block, we saw how someone was trying to navigate long-term care and how to pay for it. Danny, pick us up, if you would, where we left off in the last segment.
Sure. So we were talking about our client's father. His name was Ralph, and he had been living in another state. And he had found himself in a long-term care facility, and he was paying $9,000 a month for his long-term care, for his cost of care. And his children, and both he and his children were watching his cash levels drop, rapidly from the cost of care. And they were trying to speculate or come up with, brainstorm, if you will, come up with ways on how to pay for the long-term care, and before they ran out of money. Because the question they started asking themselves is all right, well, we're running out of money. Where's our care going to come from, or where's my dad's care going to come from when he runs out of money? Does that mean that I'm going to, as a child, have to pay for my dad's care? And so those kinds of thoughts were running through their mind. And as we talked before in the previous segment, that's where I wanted to bring Jenah on the panel today to talk about he might be able to qualify for a VA benefit.
Gerald Eidelman with Eidelman Law Firm, tell us a little bit about the qualifying process, if you would.
Sure. When you're looking at long-term planning for a veteran, there's 3 M's that you're following. You're looking at military service, you're looking at medical neediness, and you're looking at means. And the problem that we had in this case when he first applied in 2020 was his means. He had too many assets, and he was unable to qualify for any benefit whatsoever. Another thing that's important to make people aware of is that while the VA benefits will help with paying for part of your medical long-term care, they're not going to cover all of your long-term care. The benefit is actually, in comparison to other benefits like Medicaid, it's limited. So normally, when it comes to veterans who have no means, the VA will come for and contribute so much, and then Medicaid will have to contribute the rest. And in this case, we were trying to work on both hands, both with the Medicaid issue as well as the veterans issue. Now, you can't apply for Medicaid until you apply for veterans benefit if you're a veteran. And so that's what we were trying to work on. Now, I think Jenah, as a Navy veteran and having experienced it herself, she can tell us a little bit more about how this process works.
Absolutely. So for veterans benefits, and specifically we're talking in this particular case about veterans pension, which is not to be confused with retirement. It's not to be confused with compensation. This is a veteran's pension. And in order to qualify for veterans pension, a veteran needs to have the 3 M's. So we talked a little bit about that. So military service. Military service, they needed to have actually served no less than 90 days, but after 1984, it actually has to be 2 years, but no less than 90 days as active duty. And they cannot have had a dishonorable discharge. It needs to be something other than dishonorable. And during that service that they provided to our country, they needed to have served at least 1 day during an eligible wartime period. And the government specifies what those wartime periods are. They're very specific dates. Unfortunately, some veterans, while serving our country, they fall right in between the Korean and Vietnam Wars. They don't actually meet the requirements, even though they did serve, and it's a very sad situation. But unfortunately, that's what the government dictates. They also, in order to qualify for that military service piece, they need to be 65 or older or fully disabled. Our client's father met all of these requirements, and he also had the medical need piece. He needed full-time care, in his long-term care facility. So all of those, checks were, checks in the box. He was able to apply, and that's why his dad went ahead and did that for him back in 2020. But it was the means category that really tripped him up. There's a lot of specifications. There's to meeting the means category that he got the denial from. And we talked a little bit about that. It was the rental property that really kind of tripped him up. They didn't realize, what that was going to cause later on when they started to apply for these benefits. So that is what really kind of put him over the bright line limit. The bright line limit for the VA, they call that, that's a maximum amount of benefits that a veteran is allowed to have before they will go ahead and deny him. So in 2023, it's about $150,000. But at the time, in 2020, it was less than that, and he was denied. And so that is what we're talking about. It's not a benefit for everybody. We're talking about a spend down. We're talking about what can we do, what strategies do we really need to implement so that we can preserve some assets.
And that wasn't the only issue, was it, Danny?
No, actually, he was running into another issue. Transitioning, so if you're trying to add a Medicare benefit, a veteran's benefit to his Medicare that was paying, how does that work when you're transitioning from Medicare to adding VA benefits into the system or into the cash flow, if you will, of how these bills get paid? Then on top of that, there were other things that would come into play and other legal documents that when you're dealing with the VA, you need to have special documents. And Gerald, talk about that a little bit.
Sure. A lot of people prepare powers of attorney. I always tell people these are extremely important, that they make a difference to you while you're living versus wills and other things that have to do with what happens to your assets. Like most federal agencies, however, the VA will not accept privately drafted power of attorney. They actually have their own form that has to be filled out, and some of the challenge with that is that the person also has to have capacity to sign that. So a lot of times we tell people to sign it ahead of time to make sure that they have something on record, because otherwise, if they lack capacity, signing that power of attorney form won't make any difference.
If you've served in the military, you know what being a part of a team is all about. And when it comes to retirement planning, having that team in place to look out for your best interest is equally important. Who's your team? Or do you even have a team looking out for you? If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation with our team at Market Advisory Group, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with the final segment of this show right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back to the final segment of this edition of Eye on Retirement. As you look at planning for retirement, what things may you be missing in your planning? Danny has brought to light with the story for us today of someone who was looking for ways to pay for the long-term care while the claim was already ongoing. Lots of times you can do things before you have a problem, but this is the story of someone who is currently experiencing the spend down.
Yeah, the choices available to folks are fewer if you wait to try to figure out how to pay for it when it happens. And so most insurance companies, if you're looking at a private way of paying for long-term care, most, if not all insurance companies are going to deny the responsibility of paying for your claim if you wait until, if you will, the barn's burning down. So the question we want to ask today is, what's your long-term care plan? You don't, and that does not mean you have to have a long-term care policy per se. Gerald talks a lot of times about having the foresight, if you will, to get out in front of the problem before it becomes a burning building, if you will. You know, we think about our car insurance. We have our cars insured. We have our homes insured, and we have those insured because we obviously want to have that asset replaced if there is a problem with that asset. Just because we have them insured doesn't mean that we want to be able to have a claim, though. So, but when it comes to long-term care, what's your plan if you have a claim? We'll talk about that for just a minute. And what can you expect from Medicare? So, if you're 65 and if you're 65 years of age and on Medicare, what do they cover? So, let me throw it to Mark, our Medicare expert on the panel today. Mark, how will that work?
Well, specifically speaking about veterans, when you look at Medicare, what we find is that with a lot of veterans, some of the services they think they're going to be provided aren't necessarily always available to them. Just like we learned a few minutes ago how there's different thresholds, et cetera. A lot of people, even though they may be retired from the military and have a program called TRICARE for Life, which is a ongoing medical insurance that they have for the rest of their time here on a plan as a retirement, it unfortunately does not have a long-term care benefit, and some find that to be concerning at the end. Also, they then look back at the Veterans Administration, what the veterans have, Veterans Administration have for them, and what they find out then is that those also very limited tools there as well. You have to be either fully disabled or have a 70% disabled rating to even qualify for any of those, and those are very, very, very limited. We have seen some really good luck in combining Medicare or veteran benefits with Medicare Advantage programs, which allows us to enhance some of those services and then give us a little bit other additional options that they might be looking for as we can turn some of those things into some of the special programs and special benefits as they apply to Medicare Advantage. So there is a way to enhance some of those, but you really need to sit down with a member of the team and a Medicare team to see whether or not you'd qualify for those and whether they would work.
Now, when we talk about TRICARE for Life, I'm going to throw this to Gerald, our estate planning attorney. Is that as far as long-term care goes when it applies to military folks?
No, absolutely not. Like we were talking earlier, there are benefits for veterans that qualify with specific rules that will pay for some of the long-term care costs. But when you are, if you plan ahead, if you can think about it before the barn is on fire, one of the things that you can do if you're a veteran is you need to be planning for two things. One is qualifying for veteran benefits without losing your house and your assets, and then also qualifying for Medicaid, because remember, a veteran's benefit will not pay for everything. It's a small portion of the cost. In this case, I believe it was a couple, $2,500, something like that, that would cover for the gentleman, Ralph. And so you're going to have to fill the gaps. So part of what we do is we prepare people ahead of time by protecting their assets from when the time comes to apply for Medicaid, so and veteran benefits, so they can be able to qualify for both and not deplete all their assets and leave nothing for their children.
You know, Danny, as is in all of retirement planning, when it comes to veterans benefits and incorporating those into the plan, without a team, people are putting themselves at risk of missing a serious piece of the puzzle that could be of great benefit to them down the road.
How do you know what you don't know? How do you find out those answers? Today, we respond a lot to the internet, and we think that the internet is our answer on trying to search for a particular piece of help. Let me just introduce to you Market Advisor Group. We have a complete team here that can help you, whether it's the legal, whether it's the financial, whether it's the Medicare component, whether it's the estate planning component. We have these team members that can help you figure out how to pay for your cost of the care.
And it's a complete team ready to go to work for you. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now at 316-252-8707. Go ahead and make that call. I'm Rick Everett. That's all the time we have this week. On behalf of the entire team here at Market Advisory Group, we're here to remind you that we'll keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. All rights reserved.